Hello and welcome to the next run design notes video that I'm putting out. This one is the second in my abstractation of mechanics that I have done. The first one was the Death Race 2070s. This one is based around poker and poker related games. um, Mostly anything that resembles cards, things like slots and other gambling things. I don't really know how to work those because I know significantly less about them from an actuality standpoint. But this is a run that I have done on the hub, and these are the notes that I have crafted so that you could hopefully run them at your table at home and get a little slice of something different than what is your standard Shattered run. This run is a Wetwork run. Your Johnson is really anybody that you want to use. If you have a pre-established Johnson, if you have a contact of one of your players, if you have somebody you were using from previous or want to be their first introduction as a Johnson, he's not necessarily important for how this run goes. If you have a player who's playing a gambler related archetype, like a face that has a lot of games of chance type knowledge skills, gambling problems, that kind of thing, this will be a real easy way to hook and get them into it. I personally know very little about how actual cards work, the statistics and that kind of thing. So I have taken that out of the equation. The idea here is that the the players in the game are an equal card playing skill level, which changes the game from being about the cards that you get and knowing percentages to it doesn't matter what cards I have in my hand, it matters what cards you think I have in my hand. So that the person who thinks they have the higher hand comes out through bluffs or subtle tells or false subtle tells, that kind of thing, to manipulate his opponent into reacting the way he wants rather than I've got a full house, I win this hand, I take your money on a random aspect of things. So if you do have that person who is a like an ex Vegas style high roller character, you can easily bump the amount of money you're going to pay out up, or you can bring it down to a more backroom, dirty, dim lighted card game. Both are equally as important to the idea as it is. I drew a lot of inspiration for this run from the movie of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. In the notes, there will be a link to the IMDb page for that. It's actually a really good movie if you like some crazy stuff, and it shows a decent way of spinning plates between the different characters as they go about different things, especially towards the end. The hook here is going to be that the Johnson is giving you a little bit of money, which is normally under what it would take to hire a bunch of runners to kill a man. What that means for your game is up to you. I don't know what your actual power level or payout level you want to run is. That's fine. Doesn't matter. The hook is, though, he is giving them an invite to an exclusive poker game. The person he wants to kill is one of the players in the poker game that is normally fairly well protected, and this game actually serves as a bit of a weakness or an opportunity to actually take this guy out. The secondary hook is the runners can put up money to actually play through the poker game and have the opportunity to come out with a fairly big windfall. And I will have some notes down lower on how you can kind of get them in the hook with the idea of you could win a lot of money, but then some ways that you can kind of limit how much money they actually win with things that make sense, so you don't all of a sudden have your runners walking home with 200,000 nuyen. That's a lot of nuyen. So the rules for the actual poker game is it's going to be the players and the dealer. The dealer I called Mr. House. You can call him whatever you like. I liked Mr. House because the house always wins, and it's kind of a stand-in for the Mr. Johnson ambiguity that Shadowrun is full of. The location is only revealed to the people through the invite comm link 6 hours before the game. The only thing that matters is that you have that invite comm link. It can be anybody that has it. If they want to come and they can play the buy-in, they can play. If your runners won and they want to get crazy, they can do some stuff with some of the other players that they find out about later on. The game is typically once a month. It's typically a 4-player game for 4 players, and then the Mr. House is the steady dealer. And then only one bodyguard per player, but that bodyguard isn't allowed in the actual room where the game is going to take place. In the movie Lock, Stock, there are 5 players, and they actually sit in a boxing ring, which has a really good uh, puts a really good feel on the atmosphere they're trying to create as a form of competition and stuff to it's just the players against each other. Um, the Johnson will also have some decent information on who the players are, specifically the target he wants to kill, and then one of the other players. You can pick and choose out of the other 3 who it's going to be. The idea is that these people don't necessarily want the fullness of their involvement in what is very obviously an illegal card game to be known and kind of shown about. It can cause them a little bit of trouble and grief in their actual lives, but at the same time, it's an escape that they enjoy. This is primarily a social/physically oriented legwork run. You're not going to find a whole lot about individual people on the matrix out there, and you don't really have the pictures or like the ideas of what Mr. House looks like, so you won't really be able to use a search function to go sort them down. The old guard, who is one of the players that I describe as a theme, is somebody that doesn't have this gambling side of his life public and keeps it kind of to himself. So your Johnson could potentially give you information on who he is, and I'll have a little thing in here about who he could be in a moment. And then there is this new player that's coming to town. He should be the easiest for your runners to find if they have some underground gambling technologies, if they have a Yakuza organized crime that would run a gambling game. Contact can probably get you in contact with this new guy that has rolled into town who is making some waves. That is not necessarily the linchpin, but that is a angle that the runners can put some weight on in a bunch of different ways. When I ran it on the hub, they found him and then they worked out a deal that, okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go into this game. We're going to split the money in, I don't remember the percentage of how it worked out, but we are going to need to use you to put pressure on this other guy. So at certain times, when we get down to the actual game part, they were able to spend a resource I gave them due to the way the rolls worked out. I believe it was 3 uses. So once per hand in 3 hands, they could force the new blood character out of the game. He would just fold no matter what his hand was. That'll make a little bit more sense when we get down to the game mechanics. He is also one of the ways you can kind of siphon some of the money out of the game, because maybe he's playing with somebody else's money. Maybe this is why your organized crime contact knows this guy, because he is owed money from him. That the players could potentially pay off this debt. The players could maybe just take him out in some fashion, cut a deal with him, get his comm link for the game from him, and then now they have 2 of the 4 players working towards the same goal that is going to end up getting them a better chance of actually winning the pot at the end of the game. So there's a couple of different ways you could do that. If they manage to cut a deal with him to get him to not play, but he retains the comlink invitation, he would totally show up, because he's the kind of person that is, I can talk my way out of this if things go horribly wrong, because that's what he's done his entire life. It's been, I've gotten in trouble, I owe these people money, I'm robbing one to pay the other, and I'm going to beat feet out of town before things go wrong. So the runners aren't going to make a scene at the game with him. At least that is his intention, because doing so will allow him to spill the beans about, these guys are here to kill you. And then all of a sudden, the game is going to be put on a halt, and things are going to get way more complicated for for everybody. The old guard character is the guy who goes into many of these games. He shows up usually every month. He should be an upstanding, normal, gentleman type person that yeah, he keeps this gambling aspect of his life on the down low, but if the players find out who he is and they go there and they meet with him, you should be able to give them a lot of information on the game, which can help them get an idea on how to better handle their actual job that they are trying to perform. He knows the target because they've played some of these games together, but outside of the game, he doesn't really interact with them. He is here for the social interaction and that aspect of a couple of people sitting around playing cards with a lot of new yen on the line. And it can even be more than new yen. Sometimes they could throw in things like favors or physical property, that kind of stuff. The idea here is he can help to give you some information on Mr. House, which should be mysterious, contradictory, and incomplete. Same thing with most of your matrix searches, which I kind of glazed over because that's not really a lot of information you can get about most of it from here. The target of the job, the one you are trying to kill, for the money that is offered from the Johnson, it should be fairly clear that it's not worth it to actually put forth the proper Legwork assets to kill him outside of this vulnerability. Granted, your players can go ahead and try and do that. There will be some notes down below as to what the potential responses could be. However, when he is out this game, he's not going to have access to all of his normal security that he rolls around with. So it will be a lot easier to, even if you just have your security guy in the lobby, just shoot him in the face as he comes out. That's that's a very brute force way of doing it. A group of professional criminals should be able to finesse a better way out of it. Um, However, they should be able to find out some decent information about him because they're going to want to. You're going to want to give them the idea that that's probably not a good way to handle this. At the same time, this is where your decker can come in and do some actual decking stuff to find out information. Give him some sort of vulnerability, something that the runners can exploit to get the job done in a subverse manner. Maybe he has an allergy, maybe he has some kind of medical requirement, or something that he gets into his life has bad chemical interactions. When I used it, he had a heart condition and some anger management problems. So the player in the actual poker game went out of his way to irritate, annoy, and enrage the target. And as the game went on, his face would get redder. He would start to sweat more. It made it easier for the player to manipulate him. And they used their hold that they had over top of the new blood character to supplant and reinforce this manipulation to enrage him and get his ire up. Outside, the rest of the team had managed to make a bit of a distraction with the other security folks that were there, and then they switched his medication with a stimulant. This way, when the guy comes out of there, his heart all pounding in his chest, blood pressure up kind of crazy, he's going to take that bottle of pills, hit it back, not looking at it because frag all this, that guy is an asshole, all of that stuff. He's going to take these pills, which by the time he gets in the car and they start driving off, is going to push his heart to that limit, give him a heart attack in his car, and that is how he's going to die, as opposed to something a little bit more in depth. Rewards the players, they'll feel smart for having the idea that we made it look like an accident as opposed to I put 2 rounds in his head and fought a bunch of goons. That is going to be my recommendation for how to get rid of him. Something along those lines. It could easily be just changing these pills with something he's deathly allergic to, or maybe he is on some immunosuppressant drugs and somebody on your team has a chemistry, medicinal, something along those lines skill set where you can give them you can get some chemical that will prevent the drugs that he's already taking to continue to live from working, and then as he goes about his business, that'll end up killing him. You could also get super mafia style, and while everybody's inside, subvert the security on the place, attach a bomb to the bottom of his car, disable the brakes in some kind of horrible fashion, something along those lines. As for the run, and this will probably be information they mostly get if they make contact with the old guard or some of the other knowledgeable uh, gambling, organized crime type people. Um, if the runners make a overt attempt on one of the players' lives, the game will be canceled. Period. You lose the opportunity to get that extra New Year bonus. Mr. House's security will begin to assist whoever is under attack and defending them because, after all, this is his house. He can't have this kind of thing transpire if he is going to continue to have these games, which is really what he kind of wants to do. The new blood, that guy, he's out. He's going to beat feet and run off into uh, wherever he can go to ground on. The old guard will side with Mr. House. He's been coming to these games while they don't exactly have a friendly relationship, as in, hey, let's go out for some soy beers and have a good time. There is a mutual respect between the two of them. At worst, should things go wrong, the old guard isn't going to be able to come to any more of these games and play, which is something that he enjoys doing. Um, the target will depend upon how their alpha strike goes. It is potential that they do take him out. However, KE will be immediately alerted because he will have contacts with KE or HCR dispatch or something along those lines. A platinum dock wagon contract, something along those lines. Um, However, he will also probably have the full complement of his security nearby to be a couple of blocks away. He knows that he can't bring a ton of them to the actual game. Doesn't mean they're not going to be nearby. If the runners attempt to take him out in a overt fashion after the game, the players are going to be detained. Mr. House doesn't like people messing with his game, and something is clearly going wrong here. This Mr. House's security is going to assist in however it was to drive off the attackers, and the players that were involved are all going to be pulled back inside the location that they were playing in. Mr. House is then going to go through. It's like, all right, the sanctity of this game has been fouled. I need everybody to repull the money, and you will walk out of here with the buy-in brought. Anything extra, like if somebody gets up and is forced to leave the game before they do this, that money will go to Mr. House because Mr. House always wins. This is another incentive to have your players go in a subvert way rather than an overt way, which, depending upon how your table is, depending upon how you want to actually work that out. You know your players better than I do. The card game itself is going to go in a round of hands. Typically, you're only going to have one player getting a bunch of spotlight as he's in there playing the actual poker game, but you have three other players sitting at your table. One or two of them will probably work their way into being the security for your player. When I ran it on the hub, the New Blood doesn't have an actual security personnel person. So they arranged to have one of the runners be their security. So now they had two security people versus the two security of the other people that were in there. And they were able to cause enough of a distraction to make the swap on his pills. So after every hand, I'm making finger quotes that you guys can't see, I'm sorry. You're going to want to cut out to what everybody else is doing because chances are they're trying to apply their own cons, make their own things happen. Or if you have that guy out there who is working on putting a bomb under the car, go out there, do two quick rolls, like a step. All right, first hand is going on. Everybody's kind of paying attention to what's going on with the game. Make your stealth roll to come up to the vehicle and make another roll to begin your automotive mechanic to plant the bomb on there. Stuff like that. Come back into the people on inside in the lobby. Do a little bit of RP with them between the other guards, depending upon what their plan actually is to get this done. The blinds or the bidding that you have is going to be dependent upon your table, your game's power level, your game's new yin flow, as you like to control or inflate it, however you want to do that. So that unfortunately is on you guys. Each hand is an abstract for an actual several rounds of poker. to actually win these different poker hands, your PC player is going to make a judge intentions versus the composure of one of the three other opponents of his choosing. It will be this is the judge intentions is a stand-in for trying to read tells in the other player. The composure of that player is them trying to hold those tells back from the PC who is judging. If the PC rolls higher on their judge intentions versus the composure test, they have figured out that guy's got a has seen that tell for that hand and has changed their posture accordingly. That player who failed that composure test will fold out of that hand. So long as the player proceeds to win these judge intentions versus composure rolls, he can raise and throw more money into the pot and then try and judge out another person. Um, as soon as he loses or does not wish to raise because of money is actually being exchanged, the other people are going to have the opportunity to try and see through your PC's composure to whether or not they can get a tell on him. Roll judge intentions from them versus the PC, and should they beat out, he is outplayed in a way that he causes him to lose that hand. The For this, I recommend giving your people just an abstracted dice pool that is within one or two of your PCs, because otherwise you could have your social face PC that has 15 dice and judge intentions and composure versus 8 or 9 from everybody else, and he's just gonna crush them. But remember, this is about reading other people, not necessarily the card game mechanics. So give them extra dice to kind of even it up. If your players went to the new blood and have had the opportunity to get some leverage on him, maybe reduce his dice pool against them by a couple of steps. If the players want to cause like a ruckus or do something intentional, dependent upon how it goes, like when I ran it, as the target got more and more enraged, his composure dice went more and more down. So it became easier and easier for the PC to keep pushing him out and make his night worse and worse and worse, slowly driving him to that part where he's going to get up, has to leave and go to take his heart medication. The money will be retabulated. If you are feeling crazy and are doing this in a physical game, go ahead and get some actual poker chips that are worth something else. When I ran the game online, I made it as out that they had different colored cred sticks, each with a different dollar amount that they could put in. That is probably how the game would be actually played, because poker chips are, so last century. But they wanted the game is based around not having any outside influence. Mr. House of Security is going to have his spirits are going to be there checking the place out, making sure nothing magical is going on. He is going to have some jammers going on so that there's no actual communication between people inside and outside. As such, they will be using physical cards, and using the cred sticks gives it a non-matrix way of calculating a bunch of money. Now that we've had the game go on, dependent upon how that plays out is really going to depend upon how you are taking care of their money. When I ran it online, it was 50,000 new yen per player. I put up a pot of 200,000, which after their buy-in, which will obviously go back to the people who contributed to that buy-in, that's 150,000 new yen divided by, I believe I had 5 people when I ran it. That's 30 grand a piece. That's a lot of money. I did a little bit to trim it. The new blood, he has that indebted problem with some kind of organized crime. So as the game went on, when I ran it, the target became more and more enraged, more angry, and the new guy took this as the opportunity to, you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling the way the game is. The atmosphere isn't quite right, and he went to take his money and leave. He had enough money that he was taking back out of the pot that it would cover what he owed. It was about 20 grand or so, and lowered the PC's payout from 150 to 130. It's a lot less new. Uh, on the way out, though, since he used one of the runners as his personal security, that runner made the effort to kill him. In which case, he was, messing with his comlink in the car. The security personnel runner that he had decided to intentionally crash the car to try and murder him with crash damage and put him through the window. It succeeded. He died, but not before he sent off uh, that communication from his comlink to the people that he owed money to. So it kind of sucks, but at the same time, there's a little bit of game balance. The enraged old man took his ball and went home. Essentially, is what it was, and then he died in the process. I ended up paying, I think it was 20 after everything was said and done, about 25,000 nuyen to each of the players, just due to the way that the pot had broken down and the little bit of nuyen that I paid them out to actually go on the job. Uh, the aftermath here is kind of open, mostly because I was running a little late today and get the notes as completed as I wanted. The There's a lot of different ways that it can go, and I'm not really sure how I can kind of put them all into details that are make them easily consumable for your home game. The main things I wanted to put across was the way that you can run the card game aspect of things without actually breaking out a deck of cards and trying to play it. Because it sounds like a neat idea until it actually takes you hours to perform enough hands of poker to drain somebody's resources completely so that somebody does actually win. If that is something you guys are into, go for it, go crazy. I just had the idea to bring forth the abstractation of mechanics so that it's something that people who don't have that kind of card game background could attempt, and you guys could bring home to do something a little different than just your breaking and entering jobs, your extractions, that kind of thing. This is a little bit more of a social experiment, and it is a bit more of a oddball type run as opposed to just a fairly standard thing. Um, that being said, I would love to hear how this ran for you guys if you wish to run it at the table. The links to the notes that I have here are going to be in the video description. If you do run it at the table, let me know how it went. It will help to not only let me refine how I rate these things up, it will let people who come to them looking for advice to maybe run it for their own tables, they will be able to see how it went at your tables, and then you will be able to, as a community, not that my YouTube channel is a community, but the Shadowrun community as a whole will be able to build these things bigger and bigger and bigger, and the people who come looking for advice on how to build runs will have a easier time of seeing everybody's different ways that they did things. But that is going to be it for now for this video. Thank you all for watching it, and I really hope to hear any feedback you guys might have. Thank you very much.